So I've decided to do a little reading vlog today. I am really close to my goal of reading 50 books this year. I'm at 43, so celebrate. At the moment, I am in the middle of reading Lolita, and I am really heavily annotating it. Like, I'm not very far in. You can already see there's a lot of tabs. And as you can imagine, it's a pretty intense book. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to vlog that and try to read all of it quickly. I was like, that's just not what I want to do. So I'm going to pick a different book to read, something that like has been recommended to me, but I don't think that I'm going to like. Hello? But I'm going to try my best. I'm going to go in with an open mind. This is when I have no spoilers for this particular book by this author. So I'm hoping that by maybe reading this book, I'll be able to kind of get a taste for what their work is. We're going to give it a try. We'll find out what the hype is about. We'll find out what the situation is. And that book is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. And it's all over Book Talk and all over BookTube. So anyway, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to go in with an open mind and we'll check in as I'm reading. So yeah, that's that. Ryle Kincaid? Ryle? What kind of name is Ryle? That's not a real name. And her name is Lily Bloom. I just clued into that. Her name is not Lily Blossom Bloom. And she loves flowers. Love the creativity. Okay. Interesting. He did not just pull one of these.
My dad works 2 miles from here, so he was always right up front. We have a garage, but only one car can fit in it while my dad's stuck. My dad keeps his car in the garage, and my mom keeps her car in the driveway. Well, yesterday, my mom got home alone.
So I'm on chapter 8 of this book right now, and there's like this theme throughout. Don't focus on him. There's this theme. You're literally stealing the spotlight. There's this theme throughout the book where she's like going back to journal entries, because there's like 2 storylines going on at the same time. There's one about her and her first boyfriend, and then her and Ryle. And the journal entries aren't just like normal journal entries. They are journal entries in the form of letters to Ellen DeGeneres. It's not like Dear Diary, it's like Dear Ellen. I don't know why. It wouldn't be so distracting, except she's like describing the like abuse her mother is suffering, and her mother is being, you know, abused by her father, but she is writing, and she's writing about this, and she's writing about these horrible things happening to her mom, but she's saying them to Ellen, so she'll be like, I can't believe this, Ellen, but you'll never believe what happened next, Ellen. I walked into the garage and he was like choking out my mother. Why is she talking to Ellen DeGeneres about this? I don't know why Colleen Hoover decided to make that a part of the book. I'm a little confused by it, but it's very jarring. She's like, oh, hi, Ellen. Dad tried to kill Mom today. Anyway, love your show. Bye. It's just very jarring, I guess. I just got to chapter 14 of this book, like the middle of that chapter, and I had to stop reading for a minute because it just took a really bad turn. It was actually making me upset. I was not expecting to be upset like this. It really came out of nowhere. He hits her. He just like slaps her. Like he just hits her. And it's fucking awful. I'm really upset that that had to be in this book. There's no point in that. It's very upsetting. He like just turns around and smacks her, and I am so upset that was put in this book. And I don't know what she's going to do with the rest of the story. I don't know if it's going to be, you know, it would be great if this person realizes this other person is a bad person and they leave, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. We'll check back in. Miss Hoover, we need to talk. We need to have a chit chat about this book you wrote. That is advertised as a romance novel. The way I am so angry right now. I'm not even done the book. I'm not done the book yet. Just FYI, I will check back in when I'm done, but I had to stop for a minute because I was getting too angry. Okay, if you're gonna read this book, look up trigger warnings, please, because it's comes out of left field, the things that happen. Out of nowhere, I was thinking, I'm listening to this book and I'm like, things are going really well. Like, things are going really, really well. And I feel like that's not normal. Like, there's no stakes. Like, what is happening? Where are the stakes? And usually that's like, I'm thinking the love triangle is gonna come back. I'm like, oh my God, this other guy from her past is gonna come and it's gonna be a whole love triangle thing. And then we'll work from there. Would have been great if that was the case. I usually hate love triangles, but I really wish that was what happened. Instead, I think in one of the last clips, I said that he hit her. He didn't hit her, he just shoved her hard enough that she has a huge cut and bruise on her face. I did not hit her. I did not. Anyway, so that was jarring. Basically, she like playfully shoves him because it's weird. There's broken glass and she playfully shoves him and he falls in the glass and he hurts his hand. He's a surgeon and his hand is the most important thing in the planet and he needs it. So really it's her fault for pushing him. That's why she got pushed hard enough to bruise and cut her face. Anyway, so that was frustrating. And then they're both like, oh my God, we should not have done what we did. I'm so sorry for pushing you playfully and you fell into the glass. I'm so sorry that you cut your hand and it was all my fault. They like play it off to just be like they're like, okay, you know, we both did something wrong, you know, we were both in the wrong and I'm sorry and you're sorry, so we're just gonna, and then they have sex and they're like crying and everyone is sad and everyone is upset and it's very hard to read. This is like, he's like comforting her by being like, I would never do that, I didn't mean to do that. And I'm like, this is textbook abusive behavior that is happening right now. And I'm like, this is like the cycle. He's like, I think there's a line in the book. I'm just so frustrated. There's a line in the book where she's like, this is like her inner monologue, and she's like, it's crazy that the person who has hurt me the most in the past, you know, however many years, is the person who is the only person who can make it feel better. And I was like, does that sound like the cycle of abuse to anybody else? It happens, and then he picks her up, and then they go into another room and they have sex, and then she's like actually beat up, like she's got a bruise on her face, and they have to go to supper. So they go to supper with his sister and her husband. Somebody points out like how bad it looks on her face, like, oh my god, you must have really, you know, I think the sister says something along the lines of, Ryle told me what happened, but I didn't realize it was that bad. And she's like, oh my god, he told her that he pushed me. And then he's like, yeah, there was so much oil on the floor, she slipped. She was so graceful when she fell. When she fell. Not that he pushed her when she fell. He lied to his sister because he knew his sister was going to see her and have that bruise on her face, and he didn't want his sister to be mad. He didn't want his sister to start being like, it's a little weird that you hit her hard enough that she has a bruise on her face. Her dad is abusive, and they talk about this. Her dad is dead now, but like she talks about how he was an awful person and how he was abusive to her and her mother. And the whole journal entries are basically her being like, I wish my mother fought back, I wish my mother did this, I wish my mother didn't put up with this, which is, or kind of victim blamey. And then it's like, and then she's like, well, he's not like my dad. Like, and there's just constantly making these excuses for this man who did exactly what her dad did. She even like has an inner dialogue about how he's comforting her now, kind of like how her dad comforted her mom after he would abuse her. I'm like, what is the point of that? Why did you feel the need to put that in the book? Like, I don't understand what the appeal is. I don't like the idea that there are like teenage girls reading this and getting some sort of like, but he apologized. And she's like, if you ever hit me again, like, we're done for, it's over. Like, so you're telling young girls that he's got like a voucher, a one free hit voucher, that if he does it once and he apologizes, it's okay. But if he does it again, then you have to think about it. Then you might have to say bye. But if he does it once, it's okay. It's okay. Because like that happens when you're in a silly, goofy mood and you just, you know, cause your girlfriend to have facial bleeding. It's literally, Simon's so angry, he's eating my arm right now. Okay, don't act like Ryle. You're acting like Ryle. That's some Ryle-ass behavior. Like, she's acknowledging it and making excuses for it at the same time. There's a really good book called My Dark Vanessa. It's a book that's influenced highly by Lolita, and it directly references Lolita in the text, and it's basically but from Dolores's perspective. So it's this young girl who is being abused by this older man, and it's from her perspective. So there's lots of points of time in that story where she's making excuses for him, and she's, you know, rationalizing everything, but it is in the text still clear that he's not a good person throughout, even though you're seeing it from her point of view, and she's saying, like, the words that are coming out of her mouth are, but he loves me. You still know and can acknowledge and understand through the text that the text is condemning him. It's just showing how somebody who's being groomed, somebody who's being abused, how they might brain works and how they might think that something is not what it seems like. Oh, this is not like that. This is different, even though it's exactly the same. That book does a beautiful job of depicting abuse from the victim's perspective without glamorizing it. I just don't understand how you can be so tone deaf as to, in the same breath, acknowledge that this is problematic behavior that is unacceptable on any level and it should never be tolerated, and then in the next breath be like, but it's different. This case is different, and I don't understand it, and I don't like it. And I was like reading it, I'm like, this just kind of seems like a normal romance novel, nothing crazy here. nothing weird. I don't know why people hate it so much. Like, it's not great, but it's not like offensive. And then it's like that. My brother is texting me over and over again. I have to talk to him. Just one sec. Okay, I'm gonna finish the book.
Her again, and I'll cut your fucking hand off and shove it down your throat, you worthless piece of shit. Atlas, stop! I yell. Atlas releases Ryle forcefully, taking a huge... Oh, God. The hallway instantly becomes a blur of fists and elbows, and my screams for them to stop. 2 waiters push through the door behind me and shove past me.
I don't really like that.
There isn't any anger there. Only hurt. Lots of hurt. He pauses as if he's about to say something to me, but his face just twists into disappointment. I nod. Did you know he worked there? I purse my lips together and wrap my arms over my chest, grabbing at my elbow. Yes, that's why I didn't want to go back, Ryle. I didn't want to run into him. My answer.
I'm just getting pissed off because basically her ex confronted Ryle. That's my neighbor. Her ex confronted Ryle because he thought that he rightfully thought that Ryle was the reason that Lily's face is been hurt, like visibly hurt. And she was like, "That's not what you think." And then Ryle's all pissed, says some bullshit about how Atlas, who's her ex, used to be unhoused, and that Lily must have slept with him because he was unhoused, because obviously he's worthless because he doesn't have a house. He was unhoused when he was a teenager. Like, cool, way to make me like this character more. And so he's mad, and then after Atlas like kicks him out of he owns this restaurant. It's confusing. He owns a restaurant. He kicks him out of it because he's pissed off, and he tries to fight Ryle. Ryle's like yelling at Lily and like, "I didn't bring my car," so she has to give him her keys to her car so he can, clearly this very stable man can drive. And then the whole time he's like berating her. He's like, "Why did you tell him about our fight? Did you tell him?" Like, okay, so you obviously think it's a problem because you want to hide it because you're mad that she might have told him that you were the reason that her eye looks like that her face looks like that. And she's like, "No, I didn't tell him. And you're like, this is so like upsetting. As somebody has been in positions where you're like so disillusioned to how somebody is treating you, and you're just trying to appease them, and you're trying to make everything better so that they calm down, even though they are the ones in the wrong and they are the people who are hurting you, and you're like, no, it's fine, like I was the problem. I'm the problem the whole time, like it was me, it's not what it looks like." It's so upsetting to be reading from this perspective, and to have it just being, I guess, it's validating the abuser, and it's not nice. We'll continue. So I finished the book. The one good thing I could say is that Lily and Ryle don't get together at the end, so that's good. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what the point of this book was. I don't understand it. It's just trauma. And I don't understand what the point of it is. Ryle and Lily get married on like a whim. And then everything's good, everything's really, really good, everything's great. And then Ryle finds out that she has Atlas's phone number, and he flips out, he breaks her phone, and then he pushes her down the stairs. Yeah, cute. Pushes her down the stairs, and she's like, "Why did you push me? Why did you push me down the stairs?" And he's like, "I didn't push you, you fell. Why did you push you?" Okay, so she kicks him out, and he comes back into her life. And basically, there's a lot of back and forth, and he ends up like confessing some trauma that he has in his past. He's like, "Sometimes I just like black out and I get really upset." And I'm like, okay, cool, not my problem. He's like, "It's not an excuse," but it's like, my reason. And I'm like, it kind of sounds like an excuse to me, because he's like, come back to me, stop, you're so sexy. I just have major anger problems that cause me to black out and cause major damage because I happen to be a huge man, because he's in a romance novel where women are tiny baby children. They're small. Women are small and men are big. Men are big. So he's like abusive, and there's a certain point where he tries to, as if that's any better. Like the last straw. She totally kicks him out. Find out she's pregnant, and there's a lot of back and forth about her being conflicted over the fact that this is his child. And he comes back and he's like, let me back in your life, you're so sexy. And she's like, no, which is good. I'm glad she's like, I gotta think about it. So named the baby after something that had to do with his traumatic past. Cute, I guess. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that, but okay. And then she basically gets with Atlas at the end. Ends with us, it ends with her. She's breaking the cycle. But why is my question, I guess. This was pitched to me as a romance novel. And I don't know if it was just bad advertising for the book, if it was just not properly labeled. I knew that people were like, oh, it's really dramatic, but it's a love story. And I'm like, okay, I can do a dramatic love story. Not everything has to be roses all the time. But it doesn't have to be this bad. I didn't think it was going to be so traumatic. And I guess my main issue is you see red flags all throughout the book, and they still try to make those excuses. I would say that the moral of the story, and they even like, there's a line early on in the book where they're like, there's no bad people, people just do bad things, is like the general motif, which I'm going to disagree with. He kind of seems like a bad person. Her abusive dad, a bad person. Her abusive boyfriend, a bad person, okay? I don't like this whole like, but like maybe in a different world, like, am I the one who got that vibe that it was like very forgiving of that? What I'll say, it's not horribly written. I don't think she's a bad writer necessarily, not from this book at least. I appreciated that there wasn't as many sex scenes as I thought she could have. She could have definitely gone harder there, which is good that she kind of like reeled it back, especially considering the only person that you ever spent any fucking time with is an abusive piece of shit. This is a Ryle hate page. I hate Ryle. I'm glad that they didn't end up together at the end. I'm glad that that was the conclusion, was that, you know, she broke the cycle. I'm glad that that was the conclusion. I don't know why she felt the need to put this person through repeated cycles of abuse. I didn't find that there was any lesson learned or anything. I don't think there's any good lesson to take away from it. It was, to me, it just seemed like trauma porn for the sake of it, for the sake of shock value. I didn't like it. I didn't find it empowering. I didn't find it compelling. It just made me angry. I don't know what the difference, I can't even put my finger on it, what the difference is between this and a book like My Dark Vanessa, where she's doing the same thing, she's making these excuses, but I don't know, I just felt like they were painting him as, they gave him this sad backstory, and they gave him this, and they gave him that, where it's like, he's not really a bad guy. It's like, oh no, he's not actually a bad guy. Like, he's not really a bad guy, he just like, sometimes he blacks out. Sorry. Not my fucking problem. So maybe this is an issue me. Maybe I'm just projecting my feelings. If this is your favorite book, if you felt empowered by this book, if you felt seen by this book, that's wonderful. Felt like it was unnecessary. I think that would be interesting if you had a romance novel where it does that switch where you think that you're following this love story, and then it turns out like how You is run, but you know he's a bad guy the whole time. I've never read the book, I'm talking about the show, but especially that first season. You know that Joe is the bad person. So all the red flags, you're frustrated that she sees them, but at least you know at the end of the day, you as the audience understand, and he is the bad guy. As much as she doesn't see it, we see it as an audience. I didn't like that we as the audience for most of the book saw him as this hero, as this love interest, as this person who, although he's causing her this pain, is also the one taking the pain away. It was very jarring and upsetting, especially how quickly he turns. There's no red flags. I mean, I guess the red flag at the beginning would be him fucking up that lawn chair. I'll try and like maybe put together my thoughts and maybe have a more well thought out description of this book. But I guess my conclusion is the reason I didn't like it isn't because the concept itself is bad or that I don't think people should write about abusive situations. I just feel like when 80% of your book is building up sympathy for an abuser, even though they don't end up together in the end, I still find it extremely frustrating that we spent so much of this book, so many pages, giving this man sympathy. Her not staying with him at the end it doesn't make it evident enough that he's a bad guy. People can change, but I didn't like it. Thanks for watching. Recommend me some better books, please.